I am taking care of every detail for you. Message from God today. The storm you are living through right now is not an accident. The sleepless nights, the unanswered questions, the weight that presses down on your chest when nobody is watching, none of it is random. And even though it feels like silence surrounds you, that silence is not empty. It is full of movement, full of detail, full of God working behind the curtain of your life. When everything seems still, that's when the greatest works are being written. Think about it. A seed makes no sound when it breaks underground, but the roots are spreading and life is pushing through the dark. The same happens with your story. You don't hear it, you don't see it, but there is a design unfolding under the surface. And right now, God is whispering through the storm, I am taking care of every detail for you. You might believe that He has forgotten you because nothing has changed. But let me ask you this, what if the delay is not a punishment, but a preparation? What if the silence you fear is actually the proof that God is close, so close that His hands are arranging things too delicate for your eyes to witness? We are so used to measuring life by noise, by visible progress, by the obvious signs of growth. But God moves differently. He works in the details you overlook, in the moments you call coincidences, in the interruptions that frustrate you. Life is not chaos. It is choreography, and you are not lost. You are being led. Every prayer you've whispered, every tear you've hidden, every thought you never voiced out loud, God heard it all, and He did not dismiss it. He has been sculpting, arranging, protecting, and aligning every single element that will carry you toward the future He already wrote. This message isn't appearing on your screen by chance. You didn't just find this video while scrolling. God brought you here because He wants you to know that you don't need to carry the weight of figuring out everything. The proof of His love is not only in the great miracles, but in the smallest, invisible details that only He could design. So as you listen now, open your heart to the truth that every detail of your life, every turn, every delay, every silence is already accounted for in His hands. And the same God who designed the galaxies has not overlooked you. The signal hidden in the silence. Silence is one of the hardest things for the human heart to carry. We cry out, we pray, we beg for answers, and when nothing comes back, we think God has turned away. But silence is not rejection. Silence is a signal. It is a language of heaven that doesn't use words, yet speaks louder than thunder. Think about how a radio works. You don't see the waves, but you adjust the dial until you catch the right frequency. The silence between stations is not emptiness, it's transition. And once you're tuned in, the message becomes clear. God's silence works the same way. It's not absence, it's a frequency shift. He's aligning your spirit to hear what you could never understand if He answered too quickly. Throughout history, God has spoken the loudest through silence. When Joseph sat in prison, it felt like God had forgotten him. But silence was the signal that a palace was waiting. When Jesus hung on the cross and heaven seemed closed, silence carried the signal of resurrection. In your own life, the silence you dread may be carrying the strongest proof that God is setting the stage for something greater than you expect. We misinterpret silence because we confuse it with indifference. But silence is not indifference, it's intimacy. Only someone deeply invested in your growth would allow you to walk through quiet seasons that refine your faith. If God answered instantly every time you called, you would never develop depth. You would never learn trust. You would never build endurance. So next time you face silence, don't ask, why won't God answer? Ask instead, what signal is hidden here? What shift is God tuning me into? Because silence is the frequency where trust becomes stronger than sight, and faith becomes greater than fear. And maybe that's exactly what you needed to hear today. The silence you've been wrestling with is not proof that God has abandoned you. It's proof that He is closer than ever. working in ways that require you to stay still long enough to receive what words could never explain. The invisible timing of God. We are obsessed with clocks, seconds, minutes, hours, deadlines. Our entire life is structured around human time, but God does not live inside our calendar. His timing is invisible, and that's why it frustrates us. We look at our watch and think he's late. We compare ourselves to others and believe he forgot us. But heaven doesn't move by schedules, it moves by seasons. Think of a farmer. He doesn't plant a seed today and expect a harvest tomorrow. He trusts in the rhythm of the earth, in the invisible timing of growth. He knows the rain must come, the roots must form, the sun must rise day after day before the fruit appears. God works the same way. The fact that you don't see progress doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means the roots are forming where your eyes cannot reach. One of the most powerful truths about God's timing is this: He never rushes, but He's never late. When Sarah laughed at the promise of a child, God already had Isaac's date circled in eternity. When Israel cried under Pharaoh's chains, God had already chosen the exact night of their deliverance. And when Jesus finally arrived at Lazarus's tomb, he wasn't 4 days late. He was right on time for a resurrection. The problem is that we mistake waiting for wasting. We think every silent year is lost time, but God does not waste a second. Every delay is packed with hidden preparation. You don't see it, but He is lining up people, opportunities, protection, and strength for the exact moment when everything must converge. His invisible timing is what ensures that when the door opens, you are not only ready to walk through it, you are ready to remain inside. So the next time you feel the weight of delay, remember this: heaven has a clock you cannot read. It doesn't tick like ours, it breathes. It waits for the perfect intersection of your faith, your growth, and His purpose. And when it strikes, no force in hell, no hand of man, no obstacle in your way will be able to stop what God has appointed for you. You are not behind schedule. You are right on time for God's invisible plan. The small doors that open big paths. We often expect God's work in our lives to arrive like a lightning strike, something grand, overwhelming, and impossible to miss. But the truth is, most of the time, His greatest moves start with something so small you barely notice it. A conversation that feels ordinary, a delay that forces you to stop, an opportunity that seems too insignificant to matter. These are often the small doors that open into paths you never imagined walking. Look back at your life. How many turning points came disguised as something simple? A single meeting that led to a friendship, a word of encouragement that gave you courage to keep going, a decision that seemed minor but redirected everything. God works this way because His power doesn't need spectacle to prove itself. The Creator of the universe doesn't have to shout. He often whispers through the smallest cracks, knowing that what begins in a hidden corner can transform an entire destiny. Think of David. He wasn't summoned to fight giants. He was sent to deliver bread to his brothers. That small errand was the door that opened the battlefield where Goliath fell. Think of Ruth. She went to glean leftover grain in a field. That routine act led her into the lineage of kings. The pattern is clear. God uses small doors to lead into unimaginable paths. The challenge is that we underestimate them. We dismiss moments because they don't look like miracles, but God hides big futures in small beginnings. What you're living right now, the detail you think is irrelevant, could be the very hinge on which your entire story turns. That conversation you almost ignored, that chance encounter, that coincidence that doesn't leave your mind. These are not random. They are divine fingerprints, small keys unlocking great doors, so stop despising the small. Pay attention to the details, because God is the God of details. And if you remain faithful in what looks small, he will use it to open a path so wide and powerful that you will look back and realize the moment everything changed was the moment you least expected. Your future may not begin with a trumpet sound. It may begin with a knock so soft you almost didn't hear it. And if today feels ordinary, don't forget, extraordinary often hides inside the ordinary, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. The weight of a single decision. Life is not only shaped by the big milestones we celebrate, but by the quiet decisions we barely notice when we make them. One choice, one yes, one no, can redirect an entire future. And God, who sees the end from the beginning, often places eternity inside the weight of a single decision. Think about how small the turning points appear at first. Moses decided to turn aside and look at a burning bush. That single step into curiosity set fire to his destiny as a deliverer. Peter decided to cast his net once more at the word of Jesus, and that moment became the doorway into discipleship. Mary said yes to an angel's invitation, and her obedience carried salvation into the world. Each decision looked small in the moment, but it carried infinite consequences. In your own life, there are moments where you stand at a crossroad, even if it doesn't feel dramatic. Maybe it's whether to forgive or hold on to resentment, whether to speak or remain silent, whether to step out in faith or stay in comfort. And while to you it feels ordinary, in the invisible realm those decisions weigh more than gold. Because every choice is a seed, and seeds always grow into something greater. We often underestimate the weight of what feels small because we want God to act without requiring our participation. But God's design is partnership. He aligns the details, He opens the doors, but He places the choice in your hand. And sometimes your yes is the very detail He's been waiting on to unlock the next stage of His plan. So never dismiss the weight of a single decision. Don't despise the small choices because they carry eternal echoes. Your decision to trust, to obey, to take a step of faith could be the hinge that opens an entirely new season. If you've been wrestling with a choice, let this be your reminder. God doesn't expect perfection, He expects surrender. And when you place your decision in His hands, even the smallest yes can outweigh years of fear, delay, and confusion. The future doesn't always come in a flood. Sometimes it begins with a single drop, the moment you choose to align your will with His. The hidden shields of protection. We cry over closed doors because we think they are punishment. We mourn opportunities that slip away because we believe we failed. But what if those disappointments weren't rejection at all? What if they were shields, God's hidden protection against dangers you could not see? Protection doesn't always look like safety. Sometimes it looks like frustration. Think of the times you wanted something so badly, but it never worked out. You thought God was ignoring you, but in reality, He was shielding you from a trap that would have broken you. We only see the surface, but He sees the hidden motives, the unseen accidents, the storms waiting on the other side. And because He loves you, He closes doors that could destroy you, even when you're begging Him to open them. Look at Paul in the book of Acts. He tried to enter certain regions to preach, but the Spirit of God stopped him. What looked like a block was actually direction, a shield guiding him to the right mission field. The Israelites begged for a king, and though God allowed it, their history shows how often their desires blinded them. A yes at the wrong time can hurt far more than a no given in love. The truth is, unanswered prayers are often answered in ways you don't recognize. That relationship that ended, the job that rejected you, the opportunity that slipped away, each one may have been a shield placed over you. God is not only interested in blessing you, He is committed to protecting you. And sometimes His greatest gift is the pain you never had to endure because He blocked the path before you could walk into it. So instead of asking, "Why didn't this happen for me?" begin to thank Him for what didn't work out. Because one day you will see clearly that his refusal was mercy, his delay was love, and his silence was a shield. If you're frustrated right now over what you lost, remember this: you didn't lose what was yours. You were protected from what was never meant to be part of your destiny. And one day, when you look back, you will thank him for the doors that closed just as much as the ones that opened. The echo of prayers unanswered. There are few things that wound the heart more than feeling like your prayers have gone unheard. You pour out your soul, you cry in the night, you beg for change, and nothing seems to happen. The silence becomes heavy, and unanswered prayers feel like proof that God has turned his face away. But what if those prayers are not gone? What if they are still alive, echoing through eternity until the moment God has appointed for them to break open? Prayer is not wasted breath. Every word you've ever spoken in faith still exists before God. Revelation tells us that prayers rise like incense before his throne, stored, remembered, treasured. They don't evaporate, they resonate. And when the right time arrives, they return with power. Think of Zechariah, the father of John the Baptist. When the angel appeared to him, the first words were, "Your prayer has been heard." But this was decades after he had likely stopped praying for a child. His prayer hadn't disappeared, it had been echoing, waiting, until God's appointed hour aligned with history's need. Sometimes God answers quickly. Other times, he lets prayers echo because he is aligning more than just your life. He is aligning generations, nations, entire futures. What feels like delay to you is actually a divine symphony where every note must strike at the perfect time. So don't despise unanswered prayers. They are not forgotten, they are stored. They are not denied. They are delayed until the moment they will carry the greatest impact. Your tears, your cries, your whispered words in the dark, none of them vanished into the air. They echo still, bouncing against the walls of heaven, waiting for the signal of God's perfect timing. If you've been tempted to give up, hear this: your prayers are not dead. They are alive, and their echo is building. And when God releases them, the answer will not only bless you, but will overflow into places you never imagined. Keep praying. Keep believing, because your echo is still resounding in heaven. The puzzle pieces of destiny. Life often feels like a table scattered with puzzle pieces. Some are bright and beautiful, others are dark and jagged, and most don't seem to fit together. We pick one up and wonder, what does this have to do with my future? We try to force pieces into place, frustrated when nothing aligns, but God is the only one who sees the full picture. While we see fragments, he holds the completed image in his hands. Every joy, every heartbreak, every delay, every miracle, these are pieces of your puzzle. On their own, they look meaningless. But in the hands of God, each one finds its place. The betrayal you suffered, the loss you endured, the prayer you thought was ignored, none of it is wasted. Each piece is shaping the design he planned from the very beginning. Think about Joseph's life. Betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. Each piece looked like disaster. But years later, when Joseph stood in a palace saving nations from famine, the picture became clear. What seemed like random pain was actually essential pieces of a masterpiece. The same is true for you. Right now, you may be staring at pieces that make no sense. You may feel like your life is fractured, scattered, impossible to piece together. But God is arranging them behind the scenes, aligning one detail after another, until suddenly the picture comes into focus. The truth is, you don't have to understand how the pieces fit. You only have to trust the one holding them. Faith is believing that even the sharp, broken pieces have a place in the design. And when the puzzle is complete, you'll see that nothing was random. Every tear, every silence, every delay was a piece necessary to create the destiny God had written for you long before you were born. So hold on. Don't throw away the pieces just because they don't make sense now. Trust the process, because when the final image is revealed, you'll realize the parts of your life that once felt meaningless were the very details that made the masterpiece complete. The sacred ordinary. We expect God to move in fire from the sky, in seas that split, in miracles that shake the ground. But what if his most powerful work is hidden in the ordinary moments we overlook? The truth is, most of God's details are not wrapped in lightning. They're woven quietly into the fabric of daily life. The sacred is often disguised as routine, a meal shared, a conversation with a stranger, a walk down a familiar road. God has always chosen the ordinary as the stage for his glory. Jesus didn't perform his first miracle in a temple, but at a wedding feast, turning water into wine. He revealed himself not only on mountains, but also by sitting at tables, breaking bread, speaking life in everyday settings. What looked like common moments became eternal markers. And that same God is at work in your daily rhythms. The job you think is monotonous, the drive you repeat every day, the unseen kindness you extend when no one thanks you. These are sacred ground when touched by divine detail. The ordinary is not empty. It's often preparation. It's the soil where seeds of destiny are planted, waiting to bloom when the right season comes. We miss God because we're looking for the spectacular, but he is most often moving in the subtle. He doesn't just reveal himself in the extraordinary, he sanctifies the ordinary. That phone call you almost didn't answer, that delayed appointment, that simple smile exchanged with someone, these may all be the fingerprints of God arranging details for a future you can't yet see. So stop underestimating the ordinary. Honor the small moments, because they are the canvas where God paints miracles in disguise. The sacred isn't somewhere far away, it is in the very details of your daily life. And if you open your eyes, you will begin to see that what you call routine is often the very place where heaven has been closest all along. The turning point no one saw coming. The moments that change everything rarely announce themselves. They don't arrive with trumpets or bright signs saying, "Here it is, your breakthrough." More often they sneak into your life quietly, disguised as an ordinary day, and then suddenly shift the course of everything. That is the mystery of God's timing. He sets up turning points that no one, not even you, saw coming. Think of Paul on the road to Damascus. He wasn't searching for Christ, he was hunting Christians. In a single moment, blinded by a light he didn't expect, his entire life flipped upside down. Think of the disciples fishing all night, exhausted and discouraged. They had no idea that on that morning, Jesus would step into their boat and transform them into fishers of men. The turning points of destiny rarely look dramatic until they unfold, and then nothing is ever the same again. The same is true for you. You may think today is just another ordinary day. You wake up, follow your routine, drag yourself through hours that feel repetitive. But what if today is the day God has written as your turning point? What if the phone call you weren't expecting, the person you're about to meet, or the opportunity you thought was too small, will be the hinge on which your future swings open? This is why you cannot give up before the breakthrough. So many stop just before the shift arrives, because the silence is too heavy or the waiting too long. But God often moves at the very point where you feel least prepared. He waits until your strength is gone, so you'll know the turning was not your doing, it was his. And when it comes, the shift is undeniable. One moment you were stuck, and the next you realize every detail was aligning for this. The delay, the pain, the unanswered prayers, they weren't wasted, they were set up. And the turning point arrives not by chance, but by design. So live today with expectation. What feels like the quiet before nothing could actually be the silence before everything changes. Because the God of details is also the God of sudden shifts. And the turning point no one saw coming may be the very moment you've been waiting for all along. The masterpiece in the details. Step back for a moment and think of your life as a canvas. Up close, all you see are brushstrokes, some light, some dark, some that don't seem to make sense. You see the mistakes, the brokenness, the delays that felt unbearable, and the victories that felt too short-lived. From your perspective, it looks scattered, unfinished, and confusing. But God never paints without purpose. He is the master artist, and every stroke, every line, every shade is intentional. We cry because we don't understand the picture. We think the dark colors ruin the beauty, but without shadows there is no depth. Without contrast, there is no definition. The pain you thought ruined you is actually what highlights the grace that carried you. The silence you feared was abandonment is the background that makes his voice stand out when he finally speaks. And the details you thought were wasted are the very ones that make the painting whole. Your life, right now, might look like chaos, but in eternity's gallery, God is revealing a masterpiece. Every detail is accounted for. Nothing was accidental, nothing was overlooked. Even the broken pieces, when placed in his hands, become part of the design. The truth is, you were never abandoned in the storm. You were being painted into something greater than you could imagine. And here is the hope. One day, you will step back and see it. The picture will come into focus, and every moment that once made no sense will shine with clarity. You'll see that the master artist never wasted a tear, never ignored a prayer, never abandoned a detail. He was weaving, painting, designing all along. So rest now in this truth. Your life is not random. It is art in progress, and the same God who sculpted galaxies, who wrote eternity, who calls stars by name, is taking care of every detail for you. The masterpiece is not finished yet, but it is already beautiful in his eyes. Trust him, because the brush is still in his hands.